This year to a refuah shlema for Gittel Vasara, my mom. She should have a complete and full refuah shlema, and all of those who are listening or have cholim, please know we will dedicate our learning for them. Purim is a special time; it can bring special refuos. Even the word Purim has peiresh, which is the language of Rofe, and Par, which is the carbon that brings us back closeness to Hashem, and therefore it should be a time of special refuah and Yeshua for Klal Yisrael. And today we have an incredible shir to do, and it's entitled the Houthi-Tashen and the Hamas-Tashen and the secrets of the triple Purim. Purim HaMishulash, taking us from Purim to Parshas Para. There's a segue between between Purim and Megillah Esther to the reading for announcing Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and Chazal always put the 2 months of miracles together. Adar, the month of hidden miracles in the course of nature, and of course Nisan, which is Nigla, Mi'alateva, the Makos, Kriyas Yamsuf, etc. One leads to the other. It's also the Bechina of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, which is actually, we must deeply understand that we are in the era of Mashiach ben Yosef, and that has already been happening for quite a long time, ever since the times of the Tzaddikim, the Baal Shem Tov, the Vilna Gaon, and those. That's been happening. It's accelerated tremendously in the midpoint of this millennium in 1990. And that's a whole nother shiur to show exactly what has changed. And then it's obviously changing again, as here we are now 35 years into the next epoch, and things have accelerated greatly. Happy to announce that we see that this triple Purim has yielded several almost open miracles, as I would say. All right, let's begin at the beginning. I'm going to pose a series of questions for you about the Megillah, and it'll be a segue eventually to the significance of Purim Mishulash, as well as the segue to Paraduma, the red heifer. I visited the actual red heifers. I don't know how many of you have gone to see the nature reserve, which is in Shiloh, the place of the Mishkan. In Shiloh is where about 5, and I think 2 are still kosher. I think I mentioned last time about the Paradumas, the Texas red cows, raised by actually Christian Zionists who believe that in the Torah it says that the Jews have to return to Eretz Yisrael, have to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, whatever their motivation is. But the red cows are being taken care of not by a missionary Christian, but by a Noahide, a very, very special man who is completely synced with our Torah and understands his role. He cleans the cows, he tends to them. They were a big mess, he said. He says he grew up on a farm and knew how to take care of cows. He said people here didn't know what to do, and now the cows are happy, they're together, they're peaceful, they're not fighting, and they're clean, and there's a viewing room. You can actually see them. They have names like Malka, I don't know, all kinds of interesting names, but 2 are still valid as far as we know. And that's about what we're going to read about on the special reading for this Shabbos. But let's go back to Megillah for a second. I'm going to pose a couple of very basic questions about Purim. Question number 1, which is an essential question. Number 1, why in the Al Hanisim did we not mention Achashverosh's name? His name is absent. Okay? It says, Vayhi bimei Mordechai ve'Esther v'Shushan habira. Vayhi bimei, the next word should have been Vayhi bimei Achashverosh. And Amad Alehem Hamar Harasha. Alehem was only against Esther and Mordechai, and then it goes Bikesh Lahar Galabit. So it seems that his challenge, and in its most vicious sense, was against Mordechai and Esther. So that's strange phrasing in the Al Hanisim. And this was codified by Nevi'im, and their Talmidim And the Bnei Nevi'im, and what's the significance of leaving Achashverosh out? Isn't he the centerpiece of the story? Or one of the centerpieces anyway. So that's question number one. Question number two, let's get into the Megillah itself. At the very, very end of the Megillah, there is a little episode, and I'll share it with you, which doesn't seem to have anything to do with the story. It's the last chapter, Perek Yud. It says, Vayasem hamelech Achashverosh mas al haaretz val iye hayam. This is like tariffs. This is like Trump's tariffs. There were tariffs placed on all the nations, and also collection of monies to balance out the trade, to bring income to Achashverosh. And then it says, V'chol maset tokfo grosso, all the power of Achashverosh. The greatest power that a king has is to tax. If any government has, is to tax and support the armies that provide the defense. That's basically, and to wage wars that create economic prosperity and stability and safety. And that's what Achashverosh was doing. And it's all the Parshas Gedulas Mordechai, all connected somehow to the greatness of Mordechai, Asher Gidlo HaMelech, that he was raised up to this position of special advisor to the king. More than that, to be, I would call him vice king. He might have been Sgan HaMelech, assistant king. Halohem Ksuvim al Sefer Divrei Yamin Malchus Paros Umadai. That's not a Jewish story. That's a non-Jewish story. Mordechai was second in command, and for all intents and purposes was running this 127 state republic, which comprised, if not half the world, not the entire world, a minimum of half the world, as Chazal tell us. And then we go on to say, Ki Mordechai Yehudi Mishnah Lamelech Achashverosh, he's second in command, Gadol Yehudim, and he's still loyal to his people. Ratzi L'Ravechav, he's still connected to the Sanhedrin, at least most of them. And Doresh Tov Lamo, he's protecting the Jewish people, right? We have this thing now, Lahavdil, where Charles Schumer wrote a book about anti-Semitism. What a joke. He called himself Shomer Yisrael, but he's as the new president has said, he turned Palestinian. Unfortunately, due to the politics, he became much more compassionate to the Palestinians than to Israel. I don't know how he could publish such a book. He says, my name is Shomer Yisrael. No, but Mordechai was a Shomer Yisrael. Okay? And what do we need to know this for? I mean, fine. Very good. Beseder. But we could have ended at the end of Perek Tes, where it says, Maimer Esther Kiyam Divrei Purim Ha'ela. This was established. V'nichtav b'sefer. It was written in a sefer. So why didn't we end the Megillah over there? And furthermore, I'll enhance the question. The previous chapter, which is the next to last chapter of Megillah, is extremely, extremely confusing. Because the origin of Purim and how it came about actually had three unique stages. All right. The first one was not just spontaneous. We know that the halacha is that if somebody has a personal miracle, that they are saved from a dangerous situation, then they have to do halal and hodol Hashem, and they can make a yom mishta v'simcha lahodos Hashem. And back in the day, they would make a karban toda, which had 40 different types of bread, something for everybody, 10 of each. Or you could get all kinds of people involved, and you spread the miracle. And that's what the concept of a karban toda is. You say thank you to Hashem, but you don't say thank you Hashem in your private chambers. You say thank you to Hashem birov am, with everybody. And that's the karban toda. So it's understandable that after they were saved, right? So the Jewish people, but not all the Jewish people, decided to make a day of Mishta v'Simcha ongoing. In other words, let's go back to the pasuk and see what actually happened. What actually happened was B'yom Shloshasar l'Chodesh. This is pasuk Yuzayin in Perek Tes. V'Noach ba'arba'asar bo v'asa oso yom mishta v'simcha. Okay, so the Jews in the outer communities, not the walled cities or not Shushan, they had a party. They made asa oso yom mishta v'simcha. But the Yehudim that were in Shushan, right, fought 2 days. B'shlosh asar bo u'be'arba'asar bo v'Noach b'chamish asar. And this was the the day that they rested was the 15th, what we call Shushan Purim. V'aso Yom Mishta v'Simcha. That's it. Now, that is a very appropriate, a very halachic response to the miracle that they were saved, they were able to stand and vanquish their enemies. And as we know, if we take a look around the world right now, the wars are very, very pitched battles that are difficult to navigate. Russia, Ukraine, hard to manage, difficult, almost senseless, but so much carnage, so much, and then of course the Houthis attacking every ship that comes its way. That's not an issue for Israel or for America. That's a world issue. Do you know that the 6-Day War, basically, the 56 war that Israel fought with the help, actually, ironically, of France and England, if you can believe that, mostly France, was to reopen the Suez Canal. Nasser, Yimach Shemo, the nationalist secular pan-Arab leader, he even called Egypt and Syria to be one nation. It's called the United Arab Republic. And they closed the Suez Canal to make Cyrus, and that was enough to launch a war. And the French said, come with us, Israel, and let's get rid of these guys. And they beat them all the way back to the Suez Canal, and made sure that there was safe transfer and safe transport. That's what's going on right now. Right now, for the longest time, for over a year and a half, this is a serious international warfare issue, very serious. And only on Purim Day, if you noticed, on Purim Day itself, on Motzei Shabbos, massive attacks from America on Purim. It's unbelievable. It's very reminiscent of the Indian of the Gulf War. In Gulf War, if you recall, one ended on Purim, one started on Purim. And there were two stages, Bush the elder, Bush the younger. So one going back all the way to 1990, which was, of course, the turning point in which the Geula starts to manifest quickly, very quickly. When we enter the era of computers and sophisticated machinery, which speeds up the process of world communication, technology, knowledge, etc., but also war. And then, so on Purim, and we have to remember this is a miracle. On this Purim Shulash, all of a sudden, America decides to strike in a serious way at the Houthis, of course, putting us in war. But more importantly, it was a warning, not just to the Houthis. I said he made Houthi-Tashen or Hamas-Tashen out of them, right? Oznei Hamas and Oznei Houthim should be eaten up alive and destroyed, right? That it's a warning to Paras. I mean, this is unbelievable. I mean, Paras, the place where the Megillah takes place, the burial place of Mordechai and Esther themselves in the town of Hamadan, where people davened on Purim. The war has been launched. The war against Paras has been launched, and against Amalek. I mean, in this sense, representing Haman, has started in earnest. Okay, up until now, was Israel fighting pretty much alone, with everybody else against them, except some support from the United States, mixed bag. Enough, but not enough to win, but enough to stay afloat, but don't forget to give them and feed them. There's some tremendously sinister mixed signal with worldwide vilification, with ICC criminal courts. All of a sudden, no. All of a sudden, no. The criminal court has been sanctioned. The Houthis are under attack. Hamas has been read the riot act and been threatened deportation. Okay, there's a lot going on. The borders of the United States have been secure. In terms of not allowing Ritzicha and Gezel and all these things run wild, and of course the jailing of, I think his name was, I'm not sure the name of the agitator who they want to kick out of the country. Right now, I think he's down in Oklahoma or something, and they're going to deport him for being an agitator, which just a few weeks ago or a couple months ago was considered a protected right. No more. These are rapidly advancing things. And although we haven't seen the full fruition of this yet, but it is significant movement towards the challenge of open evil that's in the world, okay? I'm not calling anybody a tzaddik, but things like blocking world commerce by attacking ships, that cannot go on. Rallying unrest and uncivil disobedience, intimidating and anti-Semitic attacks on the physical welfare of the Jewish people around the world, which is not a chiddush, but is at least being confronted on some level by the United States. The wanton graft of selling out to other countries the ability to bring in whoever they want. Gangs, which means that they're bringing in drugs, they're taking over communities, they're murdering, raping. These things that Hamas, of course, perpetrated are now being actively and vocally challenged. This is an open miracle. But let's go back to the story of the Megillah, and I'll show you how this year's three-part Purim actually is playing out in front of our eyes. It's an absolutely incredible insight, so bear with me. So just to recap where we are so far. So far we said there's a first question of a basic question: why is there no mention of Achashverosh in the Al Hanisim, the basic prayer that's inserted on Purim Day? Where did he go? What happened to him? Why did he leave him out? And the construct seems so perfect. It says Vayihi bimei, but instead of saying Achashverosh, it doesn't Megillah. It goes on to say Mordechai Esther b'Shushan Habira. Hold on. That's borrowing phraseology from the Megillah, but going exactly in a different direction. So what are Chazal telling us here? What was their edit? What is the meaning of this? Second observation that we have was that in the very end of the Megillah, we have a powerful Achashverosh taking charge, taking money ostensibly to provide security and benefit, milchama, strength. And that strength is coming on the shoulders of the strong principled leadership of Mordechai and correcting unfair business practices by levying taxes on everybody, that they're all under the control now of a singular king. And I will point out to you that it's so uncharacteristic for Achashverosh to do that. Think about Achashverosh's tendencies around money throughout the Megillah. Well, the first time we meet him, he's making a lavish 180-day party. Don't want to get that catering bill. And in the most elaborate settings, gold and silver and tapestries that are worth untold fortunes, and everybody accesses it. Every single country, every single person, men and women. That's in a level of wealth that maybe hadn't been seen since Nebuchadnezzar and maybe all the way back to Shlomo Melech, whose treasures were actually plundered by both Nebuchadnezzar and buried by him and discovered by Haman and Achashverosh, according to the Medrash, who was a stable boy. So this stable boy Achashverosh, according to Midrashim, there are different Midrashim, but the majority seems to indicate that he was absolutely a nothing. He was from the stables and Roy to be in the stables, and he rises to be king. How? Through immense wealth that he discovered and bought people's loyalty with. When you make a giant party, and it's the same thing in politics today, if you're able to give out money to various people and programs, you have their loyalty. You can buy the unions. You can buy corporate America. You can buy everybody. Everybody has a price. The media, everybody. And except maybe a few principal people around here and there, but as Chazal say, Rubam, Kulam Begezel. It's a natural thing that people are buyable. Even we say, Shochad, a shochad can even warp the mind of a kosher Yiddish dayan. Ad kedei kach yaver pikrim yisalev divrei tzadikim. Even if you're a tzaddik, people have to be careful when it comes to money. Negias have to be carefully examined. This is a big challenge, everybody. To be a ish or isha yeshara around money is huge, and it's probably the next biggest mitzvah after davening and learning, just to be a yashar. That's what I've heard from some tzaddikim. In any case, what happened to Achashverosh's big giveaway parties? Oh, remember? Haman comes to him and asks him, hey, you want me to weigh out 10,000 shekels? That's a lot of money. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars as compensation, insurance policy for killing all the Jews. And what does Achashverosh say? I don't even want the money. HaKesef nasun lach. Don't put it in my coffers. And Haman insidiously said, give it to the oisei malacha. If you look at the pasuk, it says, give it to the artisans, the craft, or maybe the military. And didn't want to put the money like in Fort Knox. Bring in the silver bars, load them into the king's treasury. He was too clever for that. He said, let me look like it's an allocation for necessary things. Osei malacha. Oh, yeah, they're doing the work of the Medina. This is not a personal bribe for Achashverosh, but it was. So since it was a personal bribe, he hid it. Everything is about masecha. Everything is about masks. Masks and more masks. We know when Amalek attacks the Jewish people, and after the death of Aaron, when the Ananei Kavod disappear for protection, that everybody's vulnerable, Amalek comes to attack, dressed up as Canaanim, dressed up as indigenous local people. No, but they're really Amalek. It's like this guy that they're porting. He's not American. He's came to America going into Columbia University, dressing himself in the gown of academia, and using that to destroy the Jews. The same way that Amalek dresses himself up in Canaanite costumes and to confuse, just to create confusion among the Jews. What's going on here? Who's our enemy? And in that confusion, not allow them to daven specifically to understand what's going on and to be exceedingly vulnerable to their attack. Okay, so suddenly Achashverosh, who's giving away all the money in the world, when he takes Esther, he does hanacha, he does a big tax break, right? Hanacha lemedinos. And he gathers all these women and he makes a big pageant and he's concluding every single Joe and Charlie in his royal feasts and in the opportunity for their daughters to be queen. That's irrational. You have to understand what that's coming from, and we'll get to that. He had a policy. What his policy was explains a lot about Megillah. But we have to notice first, as the question, that he shifts policy dramatically at the end of the Megillah. Instead of giving away money without end, he suddenly is taking money. An act of tokef. When you take, you have to be tough to take money. Hamotzi mechaber override. You gotta be tough to take money from people. Giving it away is easy, but taking, that's another story. So why this dramatic shift in the behavior of Achashverosh? So question number one about Alanisim. Question number two about the end of the Megillah and the erratic behavior of Achashverosh, somehow doing a nahapoichu, bipolar, back and forth, from being the most generous man in the world, which is how he bought his kingdom, and all of a sudden becoming a tough international ruler. So to understand this, I wanted to explain to you the secret of the Purim Mishulash that's embedded in the Megillah. First, let me explain. What is a Purim Mishulash? This year, the observance of Purim is not going to be like this for another 18 to 20 years. I think it's 18 years. It's very special. There's a three-way split. Thursday, Friday, being one day, Thursday night, Friday, Shabbos, and Motzei Shabbos Sunday. Different observances. So let's go over what happened, which will not occur very often. So we have to savor it, learn from it, extract from it its wisdom, understand it, because it's very odd. What we do is we split up Purim three ways. Way number one is the Megillah, the giving of Matanos Lebionim, because the poor come when the people are gathered and they're reading, and it's a public fast. People are there, they want to give charity, and come together to hear the dangers of the Megillah and the eventual victory, and they're doing tshuva and so on. That is Thursday night, Friday. It does not include feasting for everybody, just the Jews who don't observe Shushan Purim, who are not in the walled cities. Why? Why should we make a difference between the walled cities and the not walled cities? Even if it's Purim Mishulash, just stay on the same page. Let's make a nice party Erev Shabbos. We did it in Beit Shemesh. Why can't you do it in Yerushalayim? No, different walled city. So what are you going to do? Do it on Shabbos? So join it into the Suda Shabbos? No, we can't join it to Suda Shabbos. It has to be a distinct and separate thing. Because Shabbos is Shabbos. Everybody knows you get together and you have Suda Shabbos. It's a mitzvah divrei Kabbalah from the Navi Yeshaya. But That's Oinik Shabbos. It's a mitzvah, but this is something else. This is something else. And it's got to be observed independently, even though it's pushed till after Shushan Purim, which is Shabbos. So, which is difficult because you're not supposed to go do anything past the 15th. You can read Megillah earlier according to Maseches Megillah. And they did as early as the 11th when they had to make logistics for people who came in from small villages and so on. We don't do that anymore today. But after the 15th, what are you doing? The Purim is way gone after the 5th. Motzei Shabbos, it's over. Havdalah, sorry, no more Purim. What? You're going to make a whole day, not the night, but the whole day of Mishteh V'Simcha called Shushan Purim on the 16th? Why? Why is that so imperative? Just move everybody, okay, so it came out on Shabbos, tough luck. Let's do everything together. Beit Shemesh Yerushalayim together. Thursday night Megillah, tons of Yonim, Friday morning Suda. We did it. It worked out. We had a lot of fun. A lot of people did it early, so they weren't going to be drunk going into Shabbos and so on, but we still had a lot of fun. Baruch Hashem. And just do the Matanos of Yonim and Mishloach Manos all on that day. No. We have to also in Shushan and all the walled cities, especially Yerushalayim, we have to observe Shushan Purim on Shabbos through reading the parsha as a maftir of Vayavo Amalek, the identical Torah reading that in Beit Shemesh we read on Thursday, on Friday morning, right? Which speaks about Vayavo Amalek, and we have to make a zikar for Amalek at the end of. It's in Sefer Shmos, the end of Bishalach, right? So, why do we do that? You're not doing a Masuda today. You're not reading Megillah today. It's Shabbos. No, we have to lane the parsha, which according to some poskim, look at the Mishnah Berurah, says can even qualify for Parsha Zachar. Wow. And not only that, but you got to do Yalav, you got to do Al Hanisim, which we asked the question about, on Shabbos. Wait a minute. It's very naked. It's going to be a Torah reading and mentioning Al Hanisim in the davening and then benching and then nothing else. No, that's important. And then we're going to transfer the Mishnah and Simcha, which includes Mishloach Manos, to Sunday. What in the world is going on over here? What's the mucker for this? What's this? What's the root of all this? What's the meaning of all this? It seems so counterlogical. Nobody, you or I, nobody would arrange Purim this way. They would have said, let's be realistic. Let's just make everything on Thursday night, Friday this year and end it and go into Shabbos and forget about it. No, we cannot. Why not? What's the difference? So if we look at Perek Tes, it will reveal that there were actually 3 parts to the establishment of Purim. First and foremost, we see in Pasuk Yud Tes that although the people in Shushan did make a celebration on what we call Shushan Purim, and the people outside did make a celebration the day before on regular Purim, but there was a difference. It says, Al Kain ha-Yehudim ha-Prazim, the outside Jews, ha-Yoshrim ba'ari ha-Prazos, scattered throughout the lands of the empire, republic. Osim as Yom Arba Asar L'Chodesh Adar, Simcha Mishtav, Yom Tov, Osim. They did it and they will continue to do it. They made a decision at some point, maybe even immediately, that not only would they do it one time because their necks were saved, but they're going to do it every time. We're going to make this a celebration of the survival of the Jewish people now and forever. Very interesting. Why only the Jews in the present? Shushan Jews did not do that. They made a party the first year because they were saved. It's a chiyuv. It's ki'ilu karban toda. But the next years, they said maybe it's not so smart. Like the rabbis who were asked, should we make Purim forever? I have to make a bracha. Part of the canon, part of the 24 books. They said, we got it. We're in the capital. We're Washington D.C. Every embassy in the world is here. All the senators, all the crazy representatives. And you know what? When you're a Jew in such a circumstance, you have to be a shtadlon. You have to know how to speak, who to speak to. Not every Jew is approachable. Then not every Jew is a friend. Certainly the goyim are problematic. We have to be careful. We're going to make this great party about how we defeated this non-Jewish despot, Amalekite, don't party in front of the non-Jews. I have a very dear relative, married to a first cousin of mine, did a very smart thing, which I encourage all of you to do, was a Rebbe in Queens, and together with another Rebbe, who was a very clever man, they decided to buy depressed real estate in and around the area from their Rebbe salaries. No, still hey, quite. And they became multimillionaires as the property values rose. From a simple mechanech to a multimillionaire. But you know what? Never changed houses, never displayed wealth. And he says, you know why? He was European. He said, in front of the non-Jews, don't do it. It's orer kina. So the Jews in Shushan chose not to display their joy. Outside of Shushan, if you're in Arkansas, in all these places, okay, fine. So if a Jew makes a party, no one's going to even notice a random Jew here and there. But in Shushan, where everybody's watching, everybody carefully, we're not going to do it until they were compelled to. So stage one of the development of Purim is outlined in the Megillah, saying the outside Jews, the Jews of the Purim, took it on forever, on their own, as a day of victory that we survived. The survival of the Jewish people, that's a big deal. Religious, not religious, intermarried, not intermarried, who cares? It's the Jewish people survived. It was a bodily thing, bodily threat. Now, to snuff out the spark of biological Jewish life. But then comes along Mordechai. And Mordechai says something else. Vayichtov Mordechai. This is now Pasuk Chav. Mordechai comes in. He says, up until now, it was just self-initiated by the Jews. Mordechai gets involved, head of Sanhedrin, and he says, Vayishlach Svarim. Vayichtov Mordechai said, Rashi says, Chazal say, is the actual Megillah that we have. Mordechai wrote the Megillah as it is currently constituted. And he sent it out in that first year. Doesn't matter whether you're in the walled city, not in the walled city, close, far. That they should also do what the Jews accepted upon themselves, the outside Jews did, as Yom 14 l'chodesh Adar, ve'est Yom 15 bo b'chol shana b'shama. So Mordechai makes an edict of the Sanhedrin saying, Shushan Jews, you're no different. You're going to have to join your brethren in what they initiated and celebrate Purim. And I'm going to give you the story behind it, why. I sent you the text of Megillah, so everybody should know beferish exactly why we're doing this. Not only that, but he took on that additional idea of unifying people through Monos and through Matanos Avyonim, holding the Jews together, no two separate celebrations, everything one unified. That's the edict of Mordechai. Okay, but then comes Esther. And after all this, and after the Jews kimu, they accepted what Mordechai said. He was a posek. He was the posek ador, right? He decreed a rabbinic holiday on them. That's it. But it was not, doesn't mean that the Megillah was part of the Tanakh, not yet, until Esther intervenes. And Esther says, but in Pasuk Chavtes now, but Tichtov, with a large tuff, but Tichtov Esther Hamalka, Bas Abichael, Mordechai Yehudi, es kol Tokef, L'kaim es Igris HaPurim Hazos. Tokef, like Achashverosh's Tokef. Esther's tough. In the very last Pasuk, it's written here, in Lamed Beis, the last pasuk of the parak. Umaimer Esther kiyam divrei Purim ha'elu v'nichtav b'sefer. She demanded, says Rashi, based on the Medrash, Esther biksha me'eis chachmei ador l'kovav lichtov sefer zeh im shar haksuvim. Include me in the canon. I want to be one of the 24 books of Tanakh. V'zehu v'nichtav b'sefer, and that's what Chazal eventually, Megillah Yud Aleph speaks about the fact. And that's what at the very beginning. Based about the idea that Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra, she said this prophetically, that this Megillah that was written by Mordechai, although it says Esther Baruch HaKodesh Nemra, where was the Nemra? Did she dictate the Megillah to Mordechai? Did they write it together? This is not clear, at least not to me. But what is clear is that she asked the Sanhedrin of the day to say, there's one more piece of Purim. There are 3 parts of Purim. The soul of Purim is something much higher than you think. It's actually Kitoira Mamish. In fact, the halacha is outrageous. I think we spoke about this last time, that it's considered equivalent of Torah itself and will never be batel at all ever, even if other observances like Tisha B'Av and Shavas B'Tammuz and Asar B'Teves and Som Gedalia, they're all going to be gone. But we'll remember Tiny Esther and we'll remember to read the Megillah. So those are the 3 dimensions. Let's analyze what they represent. And I think that they correspond, my personal opinion, again, nicely to the 3 days of the Purim Mishulash. Follow me. Step 1, individual Jews, some of the Jewish people, not all, not the ones in the high political places, said we will accept Purim on us forever as a victory that the Jewish people are alive. Am Yisrael Chai. That's the basic. That came from the people itself. It didn't come from the rabbis. It didn't come from their kings. It didn't come from the Nevi'im. Nothing. It came from the Jewish people. The Jewish people have a song. It's called Am Yisrael Chai. We sing it. It's the motto of this horrific matzav that we're in, that will survive the Amaleki tortures that we have and somehow defeat them despite all the issues internally and externally. I'm not even sure which is worse right now, the internally or the externally. This is a battle royale right now for the soul of the state of Israel. It's a pitched battle, and halavai, we should just find a way to unify and win. This is what we have to daven for. Comes along Mordechai and says, yes, very nice, Am Yisrael Chai, I'm with you. We have to celebrate the eternity of the Jewish people. Hashem loves us. He's not going to destroy the Jewish people. But guess what? We have a purpose. We have a tachlis in this world. It's not just to be a Jew and run around, buy yourself a nice car, represent some basketball player and make millions of dollars, be the commissioner of the National Basketball League, be an agent for billionaire actors. Yeah, these are all great things, and Jews are really good at it. But that's not the point. It's not the point that we should be physically a Jew, but with no mission and no purpose. So Mordechai comes along and says, guess what? We, including the Jews in Shushan, who represent the Jewish people to the world, the big Jews, the Jews who write books, the Jews who lead Congress, the Jews who are multi-billionaires, all those Jews, right, have to learn that Hashem is running the world. There's Hashgacha Pratis, and Hashem has a special mission for the Jewish people to provide a shining example of God's will in this world. Okay, that's it. We have to behave. We have to be unified. Mordechai, first and foremost, demanded unity. We're all going to observe, but we're all going to do this because you listen to the rabbis who represent the word of Hashem, the will of Hashem. Okay, so that observance, which is not just Am Yisrael Chai, but more importantly, that Klal Yisrael is going to do Mishloach Monos Ish L'Re'ehu Matanos Le'Avyonim. The Jews have an obligation to unify for the good and welfare of the Jewish people. And once they unify, they should unify there as the instruction, under the instructions of the sages of Israel. In other words, a unified Jewish people all listening to the Sanhedrin. That's our goal. And when we do that, we will bring out the best in each other and the world. But that was Mordechai's Purim. Then comes Esther's Purim. And Esther says, guess what, guys? There's a lot more here than what you're going on. Esther is Nistar. She gave us the hints at what the hidden gems of the Megillah really are. Like I mentioned last time, the small tough Shin Zion that predicted in Vav, where there's a big Vav, that in the 6th millennium there would be 10 sons of Haman hanged. Esther saw and felt Ruach HaKodesh, Nemra, that there's something much more to unifying Jews under the banner of halacha and the will of Hashem. There's something much more here. And that is that this is something that's instructions for the entire world. The Torah is the blueprint of the entire world. Hashem is using the Jewish people to be rebbes, to teach the Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noach to the entire world. That's our job. Says Esther, this is just like that. Our purpose here is not just for the welfare of the Jewish people and the welfare, and observing Torah and being a shining example or lagayim. No. It's a lot more than that. It's really about repairing and fixing the world. Now that the Jewish people get organized, our job is much bigger. Is to organize the world under the banner of Hashem's purpose, the 7 mitzvahs of Noach, and the support of the Jew. Just like that Noahide who was keeping the cows because he believes with all his heart and soul that Hashem gave the Torah on Sinai and gave it to the Jewish people. And his will is that there be a holy temple, not because he thinks Yoshka is going to come. That's ridiculous. That's not holy. But what is holy is, oh, well, we'll take the money in the meantime, according to many people. Let's not get into that. There's different opinions. But my Rabbi said not to. But they do. They do give. They do support. Okay. It's a mixed bag. So the idea is that Esther said this is global. This is much more than Jewish. This is a global event. And we're going to change the whole world. And it's going to remain forever like Torah. What does she want to happen? What she wants to happen is that Mordechai should not just lead the Jewish people, but Mordechai should lead the world. Let us bring the sovereignty of Hashem to bear by teaching the world to be connected to Hashem through observing his Shev Mitzvah Noach, paying homage to Israel and the Jewish people, to the Torah. And if we can't do it internally first, we're going to have a very hard time doing it globally. Although we do have global people like the farmer who keeps the paraduma, who is listening. There are many people that are listening. Our job, our work, our prayer, our holiness is that everybody get together under one banner. I personally feel that the events of October 7th were a call to unity for the entire Jewish people, and the people who are using it wrong. But essentially, the deep holiness of that event was that Hashem loves every Jew, no matter what they're doing, no matter how far they are, no matter what their shitas are, no matter what the hashkafas are, how they think about Arabs, or how they think about Shabbos or Yontif or Simchas Torah. Hashem mamish loves every Jew unconditionally, and that they're holy in their intrinsic being, and that he wants a connection to them. And many of them did connect, and many stories are coming out how those that reached out to Hashem at that time have stories to tell. A lot of stories to tell. And in any way, there were so many miracles that happened, how people were saved, etc. But it's a call to connect. Good. Esther saw that. Esther saw something more. Unifying the world under the one king. That's the job of the Jewish people. So here's our 3-part Purim. The first observance of Purim, which is Thursday, Friday of this year, which won't come again for a long time. And I believe it won't come again for a long time because we needed to pay attention this year to this incredible message. That there's actually 3 separate yozmot, motivations to create Purim and maintain Purim for all time, and to teach us the great level of Purim. The Jews themselves were knowledgeable enough and cared enough to say the Jewish people must be preserved. We are Baishanim, Rachmanim, Baishanim, Gomli Chasadim. We want to take care of each other. We want to stay alive. We want to battle our wicked enemies. We did it. That's basic. That was Thursday night, Friday, where we gathered together to read the Megillah about how we were saved and to make Mishnah V'Simcha outside, like the Prozim did, like the Jews of the outside did historically. But on Sunday, we reflected what Mordechai brought. Stage 2 of the development of Purim, which is we need to be in Shushan Abira. I'm in Shushan Abira. I'm Mishnah Lamelech HaChashverosh. I'm going to be part of this world. I'm going to be a Shtadlan. I'm like a Mashiach ben Yosef, which is from the tribes of Rachel, which he was, ben Binyamin. I'm going to finish the job of Shaul HaMelech to beat Amalek back out of this world. And that's what we need to do. And the Jews need to lead the battle in the halls of government, in the halls of power. And he encouraged the Jews of Shushan to not be afraid, just like he wasn't afraid, to demonstrate publicly their Jewishness and their advocacy for the Jewish people, and to be a real Shomer Yisrael and not a fake one, okay? And not a compromised one, and not a misguided one, and not a misunderstanding one. That's Mordechai's Megillah, and that's a chiyuv midrabanan. Midivrei Sof, from the Sanhedrin. But then Esther said, that's the part that's reflected on Shabbos, in which we say Al Anisim and we read the Torah, we connect Purim to the actual Torah, the story of Amalek. That is the story of the global defeat of Amalek, not the local defeat of Amalek. That happened. There are many Purims in Europe when we were saved from various disasters, even from the entire Holocaust. There should be a Purim for those that are saved, and there are many. But this is much more of a global event, says Esther. This is the defeat of the nation that represents Hitnagdut, opposition to Hashem, opposition to the Jewish people, opposition to holiness, opposition to the concept of one king. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. When the world will understand to serve one king under the banner of the benevolent Jewish leadership who want everything to go well for everybody in the world. They don't want missiles and torpedoes to go on boats in the Suez Canal. They don't want crazy Houthis firing missiles all over the world, ballistic missiles. They don't want a wicked regime to torment its own people and, of course, try to destroy the state of Israel and the Jewish people. They don't want rapists and murderers and baby burners and not gangs that need to be in massive prisons in El Salvador, and not smugglers, and not dope, mongers. And if you have to understand, I have to reveal this to you. If you don't get it, this is actually the major force in the world that's supporting this is China. China and Russia to a certain extent, and Iran. But Iran is nothing without China. When she puts the clamps on them, their only way out is China. So the Chinese, and the billions of Chinese have a lot to learn and a lot to change. And it's a pitched battle because that's where all the money is coming from. All the money is coming from. If America doesn't supply the money and Europe doesn't supply the money, which they gladly would do and gladly will do, any case, to support whatever is good for their own personal self-interests, China. People who never lived a life with a Jew in their neighborhood, who never met a Mordechai, who never spoke a language or took on a system of ethics that at least tried to resemble the Torah in some way or even acknowledge its existence. Okay. Now, so on Shabbos, we connect the concept of Al Hanisim and Purim to Torah itself, the global plan for the world. We have 3 days of Purim, 3 different strains and elements with 3 different messages. Message number 1, which is the Thursday, the fasting, the Megillah, Am Yisrael Chai. Message number 2, which took place on Sunday of Shushan Purim, is the obligation of Jews to enter the world and try to repair the world and to stand up to the evil of that they encounter in their generation, but more importantly, to be united under the banner of Hashem. The Jewish people need to be united under the banner of Hashem and help each other. That's Mordechai. That was Sunday. Mishta v'simcha, that's all. Yeah, it's Matanas Avyonim. But that was done already. And then Mishloach Manos, because that's part of the Suda. But Shabbos was something of a different league altogether. We read the Torah. We elevate Megillah Esther to equate it with Torah. That's what Esther asks for. That's what she got. And what that does is it shows that Purim is not a story. And it's not a history. I have to say this with some pain in my heart. There was a show a number of years ago about a doctor who had autism. And he was a very controversial person, ultra brilliant, but erratic. And they didn't know what to do with him and had a lot of sorrows with him in the hospital. This was the show. I don't know what it's called, The Doctor or something like that. And his mentor was a supposedly Jewish doctor named Dr. Glassman, a wise, sagely, kind man, very Jewish character, Jewish name and everything. Over the course of the show, he decides to, do his own thing, forget about serving the world, and he wants to date somebody, and he dates a woman who he thinks is Jewish, and he says to her, what are you doing for Purim? He joked. And Purim was about as important to them as, I don't know what, the most insignificant thing in the world. Poor Dr. Glassman. And when it was revealed that his mother wasn't even Jewish at that point, so he wasn't even a Jew. He was Jewish, but not a Jew. And it was such a mockery of everything holy. And it hurt to watch that. This character was so wise and worthy, but the ultimate end was complete assimilation and rejection of every observance, but in particular Purim. He said, "What are you doing for Purim?" He said, "I'm not doing anything." Okay, I'm not really interested in Purim because who cares? But Esther cares, and we need to care. And the Jews need to know they have a job to do on Purim, and to be connected. And it's our job to connect them, at least in our prayers, if nothing else, and in our interactions with other people, and in the examples that we set with our own behavior. Okay, so Am Yisrael Chai, yeah. Unified Jewish people. You know, we say that Yisrael is goy echad ba'aretz, but they're ba'aretz, and they're doing what Mordechai did, which is to be bravely Jewish and unify the Jewish people. But then there's a third level, and that's the level that we are rapidly witnessing, is that there's a destination here that's bigger than all of us, and that's the tikkun of the entire world coming under the banner of Hashem. And maybe that's why Achashverosh changed his tune. His original strategy was to buy the hearts of everybody because he was a lowly stable boy, and Haman, the brilliant strategist who foiled the Beis HaMikdash because he wanted to be a populist and do what the Samaritans said and what the Palestinians said and what everybody over there said. No, we can't have a Beis HaMikdash, it's got to be internationalized. Same story as today. That's what his 10 sons that were hanged and him were the Sofrim that wrote letters, according to the Tanakh, to world emperor Cyrus, who said, let the Jews go build the Jewish people, and saying, no, but it's not practical. Happened in the British Mandate too, if you were learning about British Mandate. Yes, the Zionist Christians said, go build a state for the Jewish people. But when it came down to facts on the ground, the British, and I'll say Yimach Shemam, had no interest and wanted only to work with Arabs and only gave everything good to the Arabs. But Hashem's will prevailed anyway. So therefore, what I would say is, Achashverosh's strategy that Haman developed was working like a charm until he got a little paranoid. And his paranoia really stemmed from singling Haman out above all the rest. He kept, as like you say, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. He raised Haman up to such a level, he said, let's see if this guy wants my crown or not. And sure enough, there he goes and asks him, how do I honor someone as Chavetz B'Yakaro? And he says, yeah, I want to wear the clothing of the king that the king wore when he had a crown. But not wear the crown. And at that point, Achashverosh says, this guy got my wife, who was royal, killed. He probably wants to get rid of. He came here to get rid of Mordechai and perhaps Esther too, and he's maybe in cahoots with Esther. And at that point, he rejects Haman and his strategy and hangs him on the very tree that he professed for Mordechai. And the end of the story is that Achashverosh understands, after all, that he is a legit king because he is associated with Esther and Mordechai. They make him a legitimate king. And if he bows to their wishes and allows them to take control over the management of the world in a kosher and holy way, he's gonna be the grand winner of the whole thing. He now has a royal wife back, not the wicked Vashti, who is a descendant of the destroyer of the Beis HaMikdash, but Esther, who's the builder of the Beis HaMikdash and a prophetess, and Mordechai, head of Sanhedrin. And all of a sudden, Achashverosh turns his tails and says, you know what? I can change my ways. I have legitimacy because of the power of Mordechai and Esther, their royal background as princes of the tribe of Benjamin, and Yehudi as the leaders of the Jewish people. They're going to lead me. I may not be the greatest worthy person for a king, but I got them. If I got them, I'm good. And therefore, I'll just take money. I don't need to give money away. These guys got it all under control. Show me the money. All of a sudden, he doesn't need his money to buy world rulership. He can just have a good time because he's secure in that role. And that's why I believe his name doesn't appear in the Al-Anisim at all, because you say Vahibi May Mordechai Esther, not Achashverosh. Achashverosh was ruling on their. He was riding their shoulders, not the other way around. They were the Koveya. They were the real de facto rulers. The Tabat was in the hands, which represents the world, is in the hands of Mordechai and Esther. The Beit Haman is in the house of. They're going to build the Beit Hamikdash. They're going to teach the world there's one true king. And Achashverosh says, "Okay, so I go with that, and I'm going to be the beneficiary of all this." And the story of Al-Anisim is really the story of Malchus Yisrael, which what Mordechai and Esther became, the de facto rulers of Israel, and another 126 Medinot, and the destruction of Amalek, which is the forces that work to deny Jerusalem, the Jewish Jerusalem, and the Holy Temple in Yerushalayim from being manifest. That's what's happening. And that's the story of Al-Anisim. And that's Vayavo Amalek, how we get rid of them through Yeshua. There's much more here, but I'm going to suffice it with this. And I will just add that we should be thankful to Hashem in this incredible Purim Mishulash to notice these three important aspects and take them on strong. Am Yisrael Chai, Mikam Yisrael Goyachad Ba'aretz, but finally, Malchus Shamayim B'chol Hakipa on the whole world. We are witnessing, especially primarily through the efforts of the American presidents and his cohorts, a dramatic war that has begun in earnest. It started when he got to office, maybe before, in his first term and so on and so forth, but now it's full blast, attacking everything that's inconsistent with the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach and the message that there is one unified good rulership in the world, and he is the Kli. Hopefully he'll be recognized that and remember to listen to that whizzing bullet that went past his ear, that his job is to help the Jewish people reach that vision of the Prozim of Mordechai and Esther. Have a wonderful, wonderful Para. Para represents the eternity of the Jewish people and our ability to get past death. That's why it's after Purim. We escape the tumah of death, of certain death. Am Yisrael Chai, Mikam Chayisrael Goyachad Ba'aretz. And Bayamahu Yeshem Echadishmo. Yitzhak